What's going down? Hitting us like Thor's hammer from lightning above. We're going to be looking at the brand new Assassin's Creed Valhalla fix. It's going to come across a lot of platforms and is live now. On the 14th, they trickled out what was going to happen if you created save, shut down in the game and relaunches, but those are semantics we can get into in a second. My name's Mac, and you're at the MacGyver7 channel, and today we'll be getting into some game-related news from Ubisoft, and hopefully we won't be hearing some Ubisoft patch notes. So let's go ahead and jump into it, shall we? Now, looking right over here, as we can kind of see where it kind of gives you the basics of what you're going to want to get ready into it, but the meat, the potatoes, is definitely going to be the 1.10, which we're going to slide over to right over here. Now, as we can see right over here, the different sizes on systems, Xbox S and S, all the way down to the PC, which will be variable sizes. Now, when the deploy time will be inside of there, will be up on top of there, but the content inside of there is adding game support for Settled in the expansion for the Yule Festival. The Yule Festival is a limited time event and serves as a festival to enjoy the rewards to obtain, to bring the future inside of the festive life. But let's take a closer look to take more of an analyzation of what this ends up revealing. Some of the other things that they'll go into the settlement expansions for the Yule Festival and the upcoming Yule season preview for as far as those, so stay tuned. They have a lot of cool stuff. Now, for as far as Miscellaneous, as we can kind of see as the highlights on top of there, for as far as the animal trophies will correctly appear inside of the lighthouse now, and then balancing, which comes down to a nice list of great stuff right over here. We can see that the tweaking of the NPCs and the power behavior, which was needed. A lot of the battles were just kind of ridiculous sometimes with the way they react. Now, with us on top of that, for as far as the power will now be up to maximum of 51 below the players. On top of the NPCs, and the 51 powers below will be highlighted in green, which is kind of cool. World bosses will match the player's level, which was an issue that I ran into. I still kicked the crap out of that boss, but it was damn well difficult, even at like a ridiculous setting. But as far as that, we can see that the applies to the alpha animals and type of the zealots. On top of the situation that you can kind of see where the changes and applies for the difficulties, and added a lootable chest inside of there for the Grand Maester hideout. On top of the hideouts that were available in specific moments for as far as the game, spoiler, on top of those situations, you can look at those that are dressed inside of the crit onto the Spark Ruins would not work on top of there when the slotted into the bow. On top of the situation where the issues in the wrong weapon stats displayed the specific items: Royal Guard, Viper Bow, Death Speaker, the Mark and Soul, inside of the drop handle, and the Untooth. Now let's go ahead and see the game improvements. As we start to see that the improved stability and performance, PC comes down to a major fixes on top of the freezes and performing specific actions for the first time, on top of the issues that could freeze inside of these splash screens. Now, on top of the situation where we would see graphics and animations, and where we can highlight this, we can see that it addresses the graphics issues, the characters and the NPC animation issues, the various clipping issues, on top of the fish may lay on the side during the fish animation. The NPC would cut into the air instead of the, I guess, the wheat bread. Practice doesn't always make perfect. I like how they put that in asterisk. That's pretty funny. NPC that comes down to the assassinated portion while come down to the unconsciousness would sometimes get up during the animation. Holy crap, it's like a zombie. Top of that, Myers Head's tattoo would not be displayed correctly, and the jagged sea foam on top of that situation. So there are a lot of fixes that are coming into it so far. So leave a comment down below if you are still experiencing something, you've installed it and you're like, hey, this is something new. I would definitely like to hear what's going down. But let's go ahead and hop back into where we are inside of our patch notes as we come down to the portion of getting into the quests and the overlays. These are a lot of stuff that ends up coming down to it as we kind of like highlight where we have right here before we scroll down. The sword on top of there for the showers and the ancient for as far as the assault and the location has now been fixed. Now the players can complete the honors in the Herbus. And note, if fixed well spawned inside of there again, reset her position and reset the quest. on top of that little nice little hot fix that they give you. So I mean, Ubisoft can have a Nubisoft game, but they do not, they have a nice sense of humor, and they definitely seem like they're trying to fix this a lot. But if there are running issues with these that are selectable and they're not, leave a system also that you're playing this on. I'm very curious to hear what is happening on these. On top of that, for as far as what we have inside of the Tarbin, you can follow that inside of the situations that go down for as far as the baker and the plant and the complete. You can watch has the end inside of there for Tarbon. Now the fast travel wouldn't be available under certain circumstances and continuations to England after completing that situation. On top of the allies that would not be helpful in the situation of opening the doors in the Isles of Eli, for as far as the team, his work makes the dream work. I guess I can't. Now I was laughing a little bit in the beginning, but now I'm just trying to like get through these things because they're freaking hilarious. The settlement portion for as far as what goes down in the light and the beam, the preventing the players for as far as completing the anomaly, well traveled inside of the objects that would not update in certain circumstances. Issues for as far as the Farron could get struck by the underground. The issues inside of Elvore was sometimes be levitating during the assault and the outro. Ooh, no more of that. On top of the situation for the defense and the measures with far as Jotun, we could see that it would pass through in the shield and bring the invaders into the shield object was completed. You shall not pass. Oh, well, Lord of the Rings like humor right there. Okay, I see what they're getting at here. But as we go down, there's a ton more of the issues that are going to be coming into it, and this is kind of a nice, big, fat, freaking patch note, which is great. We needed this. For as far as the brewing rebellion and the cutscene that wouldn't trigger, and NPCs and the accidents, the false portions of the preventing the player going into the completing in certain conditions, the King's End also came down to that, which didn't leave inside of the brigade for as far as the blockade on the prisons that could not randomly become inactive or active. Great, you'd want the mission to be active, but it's not. On top of the situation, the sword shower also comes down to the portion that prevent the player completing the mission, the goddess of the birth preventing the player from completing, the glory of regains and the player also getting stuck inside of there with the horn to announce nothing. On top of that, which views above all the quests and the objects that would sometimes not update after closing the gates, where we have the rivalry of the ages, where the players could not complete the quest under any circumstance. It was just a no-go. On top of that situation, the boar with the golden nose, where players could not complete a world event due to the Lady Torrens not spawning. On top of that, defense measuring portions where the players would die and return into Asgard. As we can see, the cruel destiny that prevented players from proceeding into the second phase of the boss fight. The quest name checks out. Yes, it does. I guess it does. When you look at it like that, it's a salty sense of humor. Okay, so looking at what we're coming down to before we can get out of here, before it ends up being like almost like a 12-minute patch note, because there is still some more to get down to as like these mission fixes come into the madness and the stone preventing the players to proceed, on top of the bleed and leech, which also was a preventing. We look on top of the portions where it would run out in the opposite directions in the elk, on top of the situation where the players sometimes not getting back into the room where the Norse and giants for as far as the firm bull winter, where we get stuck outside in the quest, smashing through the compass that would prevent players from completing the quest, and the war weary on top of the players that could re-enter the church under any circumstances. This wasn't allowed. On top of the situation for as far as the war and the collectors, where the world would and could complete under any circumstances. Wow, there's a lot of under no circumstances. For as far as the big and the finish, for as far as the objects that would not complete any further, the big finish was not a big finish. On top of that, we can see where the players were entering the Scaremark Smittens and to be the Lost Cathedral. On top of that situation, we are not going to get lost there no more. For as far as what's firing inside of the arrows and the quests and the objects would sometimes not be updated, which would be really lame, especially when you're trying to utilize that. Where the players could progress inside of the players game anymore on top of the region portion of England. This was a game title update on top of there for looking for the 1.0.4. On top of that, for as far as the issues that were, you can see there were some encounters, but I think we have had enough for as far as mission narratives. The world on top of there for as far as dressing up what is going to be pixels is going to be the objects and the texture placement issues on top of the various instances where players could become stuck in objects. So the world in general now got a little bit more polished over. On top of the gameplay, combat, and AI, which was definitely needed, various NPC behaviors and animations where the issues also furthermore and allowed players to shoot targets through walls, also where the spears were not being effective to destroy windows, where the fish hut and the kids were roaming inside of the ravens instead of being inside of their house, and the horses that would now run away when being hurt with a torch. Holy crap, that's brutal. On top of the issues that went for Jotun, it could sometimes wrap into the wall in a sharp shift. On top of the situation, the monk also had sometimes for as far as standing still in the performance task, hits the horse on top of the Saxton's boat for as far as where it disappeared inside of the mount. On top of the sprints will now be interrupted by actions other than dodge. So now it seems like they're going to balance that out because it was a little awkward when running a tiny bit. On top of the addressed issues for as far as what would be coming inside of the invisible AI detection for the fast travel during the dice game. Looking at the NPC where the random start for as far as the Saxton, you can also see that, well, there's going to be a lot of fixes for that boat, but what else is left? And there's still a ton as we get down to the abilities and perks where the issues from the players couldn't perform a heavy attack for as far as what happens inside of that. The perks were you wouldn't be able to activate even in the conditions were met, which I've had that happen. Instances where players were able to open buried doors and to drive into the Valkyrie abilities. Wow, how interesting. Issues, that seems like an exploit, but not really like anything else. But past that situation and the issues that were the level inside of the power trap couldn't be detonated in the second time for as far as the first trap where the NPC addressed the issues for as far as the man best friend that would deal any damage for as far as the Zealot in some of the instances. Good boy. I'm assuming that's a God of War reference right there. It seems like a God of War reference. Largely inside of the increased master point for as far as those caps. And then we go down to the UI, our HUD, our interface, and there's a crap load of stuff that they addressed. For as far as the UI and the HUD issues, there's location issues. On top of that, the Animus in the store now shows the corresponding items detailed inside of the page. Issues where players would sometimes lose their weapons, performing a dual weapon swap, on top of the situation where the information in the icon could appear for as far as smaller. When you look inside of the what makes the distinguishing portion of the adrenaline upgrade, also on top of the torches and the oil jars now dropping in situation and put out on the ground with the Y/triangle depending on which system you're rocking. On top of that situation for as far as the issues that would allow players to get the beggar rewards several times, exploit seems like, not something that seemed like issue, maybe Ubisoft's issue. But looking at the stats for wouldn't be able to update after leaving online mode, address the issues where the players could not interact with Rita anymore, added it off for the quick time events input type for in the menu. Turning the option off will allow the game to bypass smashing action during some of the boss encounters. Oh, so if you're having boss encounter fights, that's a really good thing and helpful. On top of the alpha animals where the players wouldn't be able to be awarded the skills with the animals not being able to be killed, and for as far as where the opals would not disappear from the map underneath certain circumstances from after the collection. On top of that, for as far as the travelers that would be unlocked in the locations in the wrong territory, the players would be able to create and load a manual save anymore. On top of that, Leia's laptop. Wow, they have laptops back in the day? Holy crap. Focus in the narration, named the cloud for as far as the apprentice point for cloud saves now, the auto saves, manual saves, and episodic portions of those cloud saves. It just seems like a lot of save. Yeah, a lot of save action. Moving on past that. the save issues for as far as the corruption, and we're finally getting towards the tail end of the situation as the internet connection issue has now been polished up. The issues for as far as the pathfinders reset and the custom reboot, and the address for as far as the cloud saves and disappeared underneath certain circumstances. Photo mode addresses inside more and more the filter resets, no filters and just in the photo, on top of where the photo mode would become camera and get stuck in objects. On top of that, frames came into an issue, and now system specific. PC comes down to an issue where the benchmark tools caused the tool to not correctly collect that data for the moment it's unpaused in the sessions, and the PC addressed the issues where the VRAM was incorrectly not corresponding with the actual virtual RAM inside of there. Reduce the instances for the duration for the party rumble. Controllers go burr. Yeah. Great, I guess. Anyways, moving on. Addressing the situation for as far as the issues with the PlayStation 5 with a season pass, so it would not become displayed purchased afterwards. But that's pretty much it, everyone. I know we spent a good amount of time here, and thank you very much. If you're new to the network, you can always like, share, and subscribe, absolutely free, and helps me out as a creator. Well, if you do today, who knows? Maybe Ubisoft will continue to give us really good patch notes, because honestly, even though this was really long, this was a great attempt at what was something that was way overdue, so they did not, in my opinion, botch it. But I will look to you guys and gals to leave comments down below to tell me what your experiences are in this new playing field we call Valhalla. Later, everyone.